You never truly know where greatness begins. Sometimes it starts in the most ordinary of places. A small town, a modest home, a quiet child. In Steve Jobs' case, it began in San Francisco on February 24th, 1955. He was born to two college students who felt unprepared to raise him. So, they gave him up for adoption, and he was taken in by Paul and Clara Jobs, a working-class couple from Mountain View, California. Paul, a machinist with a deep love for building things, would unknowingly shape Steve's approach to craftsmanship and detail. Clara, loving and attentive, gave him the emotional grounding he would need for the stormy seas ahead. As a boy, Steve wasn't like the others. Teachers described him as restless, curious, sometimes difficult. But that curiosity, it was a spark. He'd take apart electronics just to see how they worked. He questioned everything. Why things worked the way they did. Why society followed certain rules. Why he was here. Even then, there was a kind of electricity in his presence. A quiet intensity that most didn't understand. By his teenage years, Jobs found a kindred spirit in a local engineering genius, Steve Wozniak. The two shared a fascination with technology and a streak of mischief. One day, Woz showed him something, a device called a blue box that could manipulate phone systems to make free long-distance calls. It was illegal, it was dangerous, but to Jobs, it was brilliant. They built and sold them, making quick money. But the lesson wasn't in the sales. It was in the power of creation. In Wozniak's invention, Jobs saw a glimpse of something bigger. If we could do this, he thought, we could do anything. He would later say, without the blue boxes, there wouldn't have been an Apple. In 1972, Jobs enrolled at Reed College. It was expensive, far beyond his family's means. After just one semester, he dropped out. But he stayed on campus, sleeping on floors, collecting Coke bottles for food money, and finding meals at the Hare Krishna temple. He wasn't there for grades, he was there for meaning. He audited classes that interested him, like calligraphy, where he learned about the beauty and artistry of typography. At the time, it seemed useless, but years later, that same class would inspire the fonts and elegance of the Macintosh. That's how Steve's mind worked, connecting dots that no one else saw, sometimes years apart. He once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." In 1976, Jobs and Wozniak founded Apple in the Jobs family garage. They were young, ambitious, and broke. But they had vision. Their first product, the Apple I, was humble. The Apple II, revolutionary. But it wasn't just about computers. It was about challenging the status quo. It was about building tools for dreamers, for the ones who saw the world not as it was, but as it could be. Jobs' obsession with design, simplicity, and user experience drove the company. He demanded excellence. He pushed people, hard, sometimes too hard. But behind that intensity was a belief. A belief that technology could be beautiful, personal, and empowering. By 1985, the dream began to crack. The Macintosh, though innovative, wasn't selling as expected. Internal politics flared. Jobs clashed with CEO John Sculley. A power struggle ensued. At 30, Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, was forced out of his own company. It was devastating. But instead of retreating, he started again. He founded Next, a company focused on building high-end computers for education. The world paid little attention, but Steve wasn't done. He also acquired a small animation company from George Lucas, Pixar. At the time, it was struggling, but Steve saw something in its creative soul. In 1997, Apple was on the brink of collapse. Sales were plummeting, morale was low, and then Apple bought Next. And with that, Steve Jobs returned. He simplified the product line. He focused the vision. He reintroduced design as a core value. And then he changed the world. Again, the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad. One after another, Apple unleashed innovation. Products that weren't just functional, but emotional. Products people loved. Jobs wasn't just building gadgets. He was building experiences, ecosystems, a lifestyle. He was skating to where the puck was going, not where it had been. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. For years, he kept it private, seeking alternative treatments, clinging to hope. Even as his health declined, he continued to work. He introduced the iPhone, the iPad. He spoke at keynotes, thinner each time, but still with fire in his eyes. He knew time was short, and so he gave it everything he had. On October 5th, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56. His final words, spoken in a soft whisper, were repeated 3 times. "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." It was as if he was seeing something beautiful that the rest of us couldn't yet understand. Jobs left behind more than devices. He left behind a way of thinking, a refusal to settle, a belief in intuition, a love for craft. He taught us that it's okay to be different, that the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are often the ones who do. And in the end, Steve Jobs was not just a visionary. He was a reminder that life is short, time is precious, and the only way to do great work is to love what you do.